I'm done, Ella. I can't do this anymore. My phone slipped from my trembling hands as I read his text. Mark's words sliced through me like arrows to the heart. Tears fell silently, but the pain behind them screamed. The breakup arrived at my lowest, eviction notices on the floor, past due bills stacked beside rejection letters from every job I'd dreamed of. Hunger gnawed at my stomach. My career had stalled. My savings were gone. My friends had disappeared. And now, the one person I trusted most had walked away too. I curled into myself, whispering through choked sobs, if he thinks this is the end, he has no idea what's coming. And yet, sitting alone on my apartment floor with the screen still glowing, I couldn't see a way forward. I didn't know how I'd survive this. All I knew was that I had nothing left to lose. Mark and I met 3 years ago at a tech conference in Boston. He was charming, funny, and always knew exactly what to say. I was presenting my first app idea, a simple budgeting tool for college students. After my presentation, he approached me with a huge smile. "That was brilliant," he said. "But you need someone to help you scale it." I believed him. Over coffee that afternoon, he painted a picture of partnership, of building something amazing together. Within months, we were dating. Within a year, we'd moved in together. He always positioned himself as the business guy while I handled the technical work. "You're the genius," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "I'm just here to make sure the world sees it." I loved him for that. I thought he believed in me. Looking back now, I realize he believed in what I could do for him. But back then, I was blind to it all. The cracks started showing 6 months ago. I'd been working on 3 separate projects, all my own ideas, all coded late into the night after my day job. Mark would sit on the couch, watching TV, occasionally glancing over. "How's it going?" he'd ask, not really listening to my answer. When I got excited about a breakthrough, he'd nod absently. "Cool, babe. Don't forget we need to pay rent." Money became his favorite topic. He'd remind me constantly that we were struggling even though I was the only one working. He'd quit his sales job 8 months earlier, claiming he needed to focus on our future. What that really meant was playing video games while I coded until 2 a.m. But I didn't complain. I thought we were partners. I thought he'd step up when the projects launched. I was so wrong, it makes me sick now. 2 months ago, everything collapsed. I lost my day job when the startup I worked for ran out of funding. Suddenly, I had no income and 3 half-finished projects that weren't making money yet. Mark's response? "I told you this would happen. You never listened to me." I stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He shook his head like I was a child. "You focus too much on the tech stuff. You don't understand business. That's why you need me." Those words stung, but I pushed them aside. I was too busy panicking about rent. I started applying everywhere, coffee shops, retail stores, anything. Every application came back with silence or rejection. Mark watched me send out resumes, his arms crossed. "You're not going to find anything decent," he said one evening. "You're not exactly qualified for much outside of coding." I bit my tongue. I didn't want to fight. But his words planted seeds of doubt that grew like weeds. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday. I opened the letter with shaking hands, reading the words 3 times before they sank in. "We had 14 days to pay or leave." I showed Mark, expecting panic or at least concern. Instead, he sighed heavily. "This is what happens when you don't plan ahead, Ella." My mouth fell open. I'm the only one who's been paying bills for months. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. "I'm going out. Clear your head and figure out what you're going to do." He left me standing there, holding the eviction notice, feeling completely abandoned. That night, I cried until I had no tears left. I thought about my 3 projects, Project Alpha, a task management app for freelancers, Project Beta, an AI-powered study guide for students, and Project Gamma, a mental health check-in tool. All brilliant ideas. All unfinished. All worthless without funding to complete them. The breakup call came 4 days later. I was at the public library, using their free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. My phone buzzed. Mark's name lit up the screen. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound upbeat. "I can't do this anymore," he said flatly. My heart stopped. "What?" He sighed like I was exhausting him. "Us. This relationship. It's not working. You're drowning, Ella, and I can't go down with you." I felt the walls closing in. "Mark, please. We can figure this out together," he cut me off. "No. You need to figure yourself out. You've been depending on me too much. Maybe this will teach you to stand on your own." Then he hung up. Just like that. 3 years, gone in a 30-second phone call. I sat in the library, staring at the blank computer screen, feeling like my entire world had shattered into a million pieces I'd never be able to put back together. I didn't eat for 2 days after the breakup. I couldn't. My stomach was twisted in knots, and every time I thought about food, I felt sick. I stayed on my friend Jenna's couch, too ashamed to tell her the full story. "Just a rough patch," I said when she asked. At night, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Mark. Every time he'd made me feel small. Every time he'd taken credit for my ideas in conversations with his friends. Every time he'd said, "You need me." The anger started building slowly, like a fire someone forgot to put out. By the 3rd day, I wasn't just sad anymore. I was furious. Mark thought I couldn't succeed without him? He thought I'd fall apart? I grabbed my laptop and opened my project files. They were all still there, alpha, beta, gamma. 90% complete. I just needed to finish them. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. I spent the next week living like a ghost. I woke up at 5 a.m., coded until noon, took a 2-hour break, then coded until midnight. Jenna worried about me, bringing me sandwiches I barely touched. "Ella, you need rest," she'd say gently. I'd nod but keep typing. Project Alpha was closest to completion. It was a task management app designed specifically for freelancers, people like me who juggled multiple clients and deadlines. The interface was clean, the features were unique, and the algorithm I'd built could predict deadline conflicts before they happened. I'd shown it to Mark once, and he'd barely looked up from his phone. "Cool," he'd said. "Let me know when it makes money." Now, working alone in Jenna's living room with nothing but my laptop and determination, I realized something. Mark had never believed in my projects. He'd only believed in what they could do for him. Project Alpha launched on a Thursday morning. I created a simple landing page, posted it on 3 freelancer forums, and held my breath. The first sign-up came within an hour. Then 5 more. Then 20. By evening, I had 200 users. My hands shook as I watched the numbers climb. These were real people, using something I'd built, finding value in it. I set up a basic subscription model, free for the first month, then $5 monthly. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, Jenna found me crying at her kitchen table. "What's wrong?" she asked, alarmed. I looked up, tears streaming down my face, and laughed. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right." She hugged me tight, not understanding but supporting me anyway. I didn't tell her about the revenue projections I'd calculated. I didn't tell her that if this growth continued, I'd have enough to survive within weeks. I just let her hold me while I cried tears of relief and hope. Mark texted me 3 days after Alpha launched. "Hey. Hope you're doing okay." I stared at the message for a full minute. My first instinct was to ignore it. My second was to tell him exactly what I thought of him. Instead, I typed, "I'm fine. Busy with work." He responded immediately. "Oh yeah? Found a job?" I smiled at my phone screen. Something like that. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else. No, I'm proud of you. No, tell me about it. Just a thumbs up. That's when I knew for certain he'd never cared about me or my success. He'd only cared about what I could provide for him. I blocked his number without a second thought. Then I opened Project Beta's files and got back to work. Alpha was just the beginning. Beta would be bigger. And Gamma? Gamma would blow everything else away. Mark had no idea what was coming. Project Beta took 2 weeks to finish. It was an AI-powered study guide that adapted to each student's learning style. I'd started building it a year ago after tutoring my younger cousin through calculus. She'd struggled with traditional study methods, so I created something personalized. The AI analyzed how students answered practice questions, identified weak areas, and generated custom study plans. It was brilliant. Even I knew it. I soft-launched Beta to a handful of college subreddits, offering it completely free to get feedback. The response was immediate and overwhelming. "This is exactly what I needed," one student wrote. "I raised my grade from a C to an A in 3 weeks," another posted. Within days, students were sharing it across campuses. My user base exploded from 50 to 5,000 in less than a week. I could barely keep up with the server costs, but I didn't care. This was working. I was making something real, something valuable, something that helped people. And I'd done it completely alone. The local news picked up Beta's story 4 weeks after launch. A reporter reached out through my website's contact form. "We'd love to feature your app in our education tech segment," the email said. My heart nearly stopped. Real media attention? I agreed immediately. The interview happened over Zoom. I wore my only professional blazer and tried to sound confident. "What inspired you to create this?" the reporter asked. I thought about lying, about giving some polished answer. Instead, I told the truth. I was broke, unemployed, and told I couldn't succeed on my own. I built this to prove that person wrong. The reporter's eyes lit up. That's an incredible story. When the segment aired 2 days later, my phone exploded with notifications. Beta's user count jumped to 15,000 overnight. Local colleges started reaching out about partnerships. And then I saw it, a message from Mark's best friend: "Dude, your ex is on the news. Did you know about this?" Mark called me 6 times that day. I ignored every one. He left a voicemail: "Ella, it's me. I saw the news thing. That's amazing. We should talk. I think we made a mistake breaking up. Call me back." I listened to it 3 times, feeling absolutely nothing except a cold, quiet satisfaction. He didn't care about me. He cared about being associated with my success. I deleted the voicemail and posted an update about Beta's growth on my professional social media. Grateful for every student using this tool. Built from scratch with determination and late nights. Proof that you don't need anyone's permission to create something meaningful. I didn't mention Mark. I didn't have to. The people who knew understood exactly what I meant. That night, I celebrated by eating an actual meal, not ramen, not canned soup, but real food I'd ordered from a restaurant. Small victories, I reminded myself. But they were mine, and mine alone. Project Gamma was personal. I'd started building it during my darkest days with Mark, when I felt isolated and worthless. It was a mental health check-in app that sent daily prompts, tracked mood patterns, and connected users with resources when they needed help. I designed it for people like me, people who felt alone but didn't know how to ask for support. Finishing it felt like closing a chapter of my life. Every line of code was a small piece of healing. Every feature was something I'd wished I had during my worst moments. When I finally deployed Gamma 6 weeks after the breakup, I didn't make a big announcement. I just quietly released it on mental health forums and support group websites. "This is for anyone who's ever felt invisible," I wrote in the description. "You matter. Your feelings matter. And you're not alone. The response was different from Alpha and Beta. Slower, but deeper. People sent me messages thanking me, sharing their stories, telling me how much the app helped them feel seen. 2 months after the breakup, all 3 projects were running successfully. Alpha had 8,000 paying subscribers generating $40,000 monthly. Beta had secured a partnership with 3 universities for a pilot program worth $150,000. Gamma was being used by over 20,000 people and had caught the attention of a nonprofit organization interested in funding its expansion. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. More importantly, I was helping people. My apps were solving real problems for real humans. I'd moved out of Jenna's place into my own small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought groceries without checking my bank account first. I paid my bills on time. I slept peacefully knowing I'd built something meaningful. And through it all, Mark had no idea. He'd assumed I'd crashed and burned without him. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The tech conference invitation arrived on a Wednesday. TechRise Summit, one of the biggest events on the East Coast, wanted me to speak on a panel about solo entrepreneurship. My hands trembled as I read the email. Me? Speaking at TechRise? I accepted immediately. The conference was 3 weeks away, which gave me time to prepare. I drafted my speech carefully, focusing on the journey, the failures, the loneliness, the determination to prove myself. I didn't mention Mark by name, but his shadow was all over my story. The night before the conference, I couldn't sleep. Nerves and excitement battled in my chest. I tried on my outfit 3 times, practiced my speech in the mirror, and questioned whether I belonged on that stage. But then I looked at my laptop, at the 3 projects that had saved my life, and I knew. I absolutely belonged there. I'd earned it through blood, sweat, tears, and countless sleepless nights. The conference hall was massive. Hundreds of people filled the seats, and the panel stage looked impossibly far away as I walked toward it. My legs felt like jelly. But the moment I sat down and the moderator introduced me, something shifted. This was my moment. The moderator asked me to share my story. I took a breath and began. A few months ago, I was jobless, broke, and facing eviction. Someone I trusted told me I needed them to succeed. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. They were wrong. The audience leaned forward. I continued, telling them about building 3 successful projects from nothing, about coding through tears, about refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. The apps I built aren't just products, I said. They're proof that your worth isn't defined by someone else's opinion of you. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. People stood up. Some were crying. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride. After the panel, people swarmed me. Entrepreneurs, investors, students, all wanting to talk, to shake my hand, to hear more. One woman grabbed my arm gently. "Thank you," she said, tears in her eyes. I needed to hear that story. I hugged her, my own eyes watering. This was bigger than Mark, bigger than revenge, bigger than proving anyone wrong. This was about helping people believe in themselves. An investor handed me his card. "I'd love to discuss funding for expansion," he said. I thanked him, tucking the card carefully into my pocket. As I walked toward the exit, I spotted someone in the crowd that made me freeze. Mark. He was standing near the back, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Our eyes met for a brief second. Then I turned and walked away without a word. He didn't deserve my attention. He never had. Mark tried to approach me in the parking lot. "Ella, wait," he called out. I kept walking. "Please, just let me talk to you." His voice was desperate now. I stopped, turned around slowly, and looked at him. Really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, less confident than I remembered. "What do you want, Mark?" I asked, my voice flat. He ran his hand through his hair nervously. I saw you up there. You were incredible. I had no idea you were doing all of this. I crossed my arms. You never asked. He flinched. I know I messed up. I said things I didn't mean. I was dealing with my own insecurities, and I took them out on you. I waited, saying nothing. He continued, stumbling over his words. I was wrong. About everything. You didn't need me. You never needed me. And I'm sorry. For a moment, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered every cruel word, every dismissive look, every time he made me feel worthless. You told me I couldn't succeed without you, I said quietly. Mark looked down. I know. I was an idiot. I took a step closer. No. You were cruel. You kicked me when I was at my lowest. You abandoned me when I needed support. And you know what? It was the best thing you ever did for me. His head snapped up, confusion in his eyes. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. Because you leaving forced me to realize something. I don't need anyone's validation. Not yours, not anyone's. I built 3 successful projects completely alone. I'm speaking at conferences. I'm helping thousands of people. And I did all of it without you. He opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. Don't contact me again, Mark. I'm done with you. Permanently. I turned and walked to my car, leaving him standing there in the parking lot, finally understanding what he'd lost. I didn't look back. There was nothing behind me worth seeing anymore. The media coverage from TechRise exploded. Tech blogs wrote articles with headlines like Solo Founder Builds 3 Apps While Homeless and Entrepreneur's Revenge Success Story Inspires Thousands. Podcasts requested interviews. LinkedIn messages flooded my inbox with collaboration offers and speaking requests. I was overwhelmed but also energized. This was my life now, building, growing, helping. 3 weeks after the conference, a major venture capital firm reached out. They wanted to invest $2 million across all 3 projects. $2 million. I read the email 5 times to make sure it was real. The meeting happened over video call. 3 partners sat across from me on the screen, all smiles and spreadsheets. We believe in your vision, the lead partner said. These apps solve real problems, and your personal story resonates with millions of people who feel underestimated. We negotiated terms. I maintained majority ownership, that was non-negotiable. By the end of the call, we had a deal. I hired my first employees 2 months later. A customer support specialist, 2 developers, and a marketing coordinator. Walking into my small office space, nothing fancy, just a converted loft downtown, felt surreal. These people believed in my projects enough to join me. Thank you for this opportunity, one developer said on her first day. I smiled. Thank you for believing in the vision. We worked long hours, but they were different from the lonely nights I'd spent coding alone. Now there was laughter, collaboration, shared excitement when we hit milestones. Alpha passed 15,000 subscribers. Beta expanded to 10 universities. Gamma partnered with a nonprofit for a national mental health campaign. Every success felt sweeter because I'd built it from nothing. Because I'd refused to give up when someone told me I wasn't good enough. Because I'd proven that determination and skill mattered more than anyone's permission or approval. 6 months after Mark's breakup call, I was featured in a major business magazine. The article was titled, From Rock Bottom to Rising Star, How Ella Martinez Built an Empire Alone. They interviewed me at my office, photographed me with my laptop surrounded by sticky notes and coffee cups. The journalist asked about my motivation. Someone once told me I needed them to succeed, I said carefully. That became my fuel. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to myself that I was capable of more than anyone, including me, realized. When the magazine hit stands, my phone buzzed with a message from Jenna, "You're on the cover of Business Weekly." I'm screaming. I laughed, feeling tears prick my eyes. None of this would have happened if I hadn't hit rock bottom. If Mark hadn't broken up with me. If I hadn't been forced to face my fears alone. Sometimes the worst moments of your life are actually the beginning of your best ones. Mark reached out one final time through a mutual friend. The message said, "Can you please ask Ella to unblock me? I just want to congratulate her properly." I read it and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pain. Just complete indifference. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I was at dinner with my team, celebrating Beta's expansion into 20 universities. My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. It was Mark's ex-girlfriend from before me. She'd shared my magazine cover with a caption, "To every woman who's been told she's not enough, look at Ella. She's proof that leaving dead weight behind makes you fly higher." I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my water. My marketing coordinator looked over. "What's funny?" I showed her the post. She grinned. Perfect. That night, driving home through the city lights, I realized something. Mark had been right about one thing. I did need him. I needed him to leave so I could finally become who I was always meant to be. Today, I run 3 successful companies. Alpha just hit 50,000 subscribers. Beta is used in over 100 schools nationwide. Gamma has helped more than 200,000 people track their mental health and find support when they needed it most. I've been invited to speak at conferences around the world. I've mentored dozens of young entrepreneurs who felt invisible and underestimated. I built something meaningful, something that matters, something that helps people. And I did it alone. Not because I had to, but because I could. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you ever think about Mark?" I smile and answer honestly, not really. Because the truth is, he's irrelevant to my story now. He was just a chapter one had to close before the real story could begin. My success isn't about proving him wrong. It's about proving myself right. About learning that I was always enough, always capable, always worthy, with or without anyone's approval. That's the lesson I carry with me every single day. And that's the message I share with everyone who feels like they're not enough. You are. You absolutely are.